You've now had a week to investigate the DNC's relationship with Fusion GPS. And I would like to know, first of all, if you would confirm how much money the DNC paid the law firm to pay Fusion GPS. Second, who authorized it within the DNC? And third, who were the people within the DNC who actually got the information and interacted with Fusion GPS?
Well, as you know, I wasn't working at the DNC at the time of this contract. When you do opposition research on another candidate in a presidential cycle, I would assert, especially in the context of what we know now, that opposition research is not simply something that ought to be done. It would be malpractice not to do it, especially when you have a presidential candidate who blew convention out of the window. He didn't disclose his tax returns. First time that's happened in decades. He has a very shady relationship with Russian authorities, and so absolutely the research that was done, opposition research, initiated, as I understand it, by a conservative organization, and then when their work was done, it was given to then it was continued by the Democrats. And you know, what we know from the research, sir, is that Donald Trump, or the Trump campaign, and the Russians were talking to each other, and their conversations, again, as we know from yesterday, were about serious things, interfering with our democracy. So we have not hidden the fact that we had opposition research that was done. Again, it was done by the law firm that was hired by the campaign. I don't know how much of the opposition research was the Fusion opposition research. I have not disaggregated that amount. But what I do know is the issue at hand is whether the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, and the Russians were conspiring to affect this election. And certainly Mr. Papadopoulos' guilty plea yesterday and the indictments that came down yesterday, that is serious stuff as it relates to collusion.
Just a quick follow-up.
Sure, real quick, go.
So since the last week, I can understand that this happened under a previous administration, but over the last week, since you now know that the DNC did spend money to Fusion GPS, have you investigated this within the DNC? Have you investigated with employees there, with your attorneys, the former attorneys? Have you done an investigation about the role of the DNC played with Fusion GPS?
Again, I was unaware of Fusion GPS until 48 hours or so before it was released. And I'll tell you, my number one concern, sir, is what happened in the election. Did the Russians and the Trump administration collude to affect the elections? That, to me, is the issue at hand.
We're going to go to John Salant of the Star.
This, of course, all coming when the Mueller indictments are happening on the background. We know that the investigation is wrapping in some Democrats as well. Sources saying that one of the companies cited in Manafort's indictment is the Podesta Group. How concerned are you about the reach of the probe into the Democratic Party?
Well, you know, the investigation, I trust Director Mueller to take the facts where the facts lead him. And here's what we know about the facts to this date. The DNC got hacked. The RNC didn't get hacked. The Russians hacked the DNC. They hacked the DNC and others because they wanted to help Donald Trump get elected president. They then trafficked in that information, the emails and other information they got. They went to the Trump campaign and found a willing participant in these efforts. That's what we know is happening. And what happened yesterday is truly remarkable. We already have one member of the Trump campaign team who has pled guilty to colluding with the the Russians. He lied about it, and he lied about it because he knew that if the truth outed, it would be bad news. And that's what we know. And this is serious stuff. This is not only an attack on the DNC, this is an attack on our democracy. And what troubles me as much as anything is the appalling silence of Republican leaders, so many of them. Speaker Ryan, Leader McConnell, they got a sock in their mouth on this. And this, you have to put country over party. I mean, in Watergate, it took way too many Republicans way too long to understand that this was an attack on our democracy. And this culture of corruption is something that we should never, ever tolerate.
Very quickly here, though, Sherry brings up Tony Podesta, somebody who's tantamount to royalty in Democratic fundraising circles. What should we take away from him recusing himself from leading his company?
Well, again, I leave that up to him to make that decision, and I lead it up to Director Mueller to conduct whatever investigation he needs to do. Again, what we do know, and what Donald Trump continues to deny, is that the Russians and the Trump campaign, and now we know that the rot goes all the way to the top of their campaign with Manafort and Gates.
We'll have to leave it there.
That rot goes all the way to the top.
Democrats. And he got some ammunition with the explosive revelations in former DNC Chair Donna Brazil's new book, Hacks, the inside story of the break-ins and breakdowns that put Donald Trump in the White House. Brazil claims the DNC gave Hillary Clinton an unfair edge over Bernie Sanders, and reveals she considered replacing Clinton as the nominee after Clinton fainted at a 9/11 ceremony. The ticket I writes was Joe Biden and New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. I felt certain that that combination would win the general election. And Donna Brazil, who has also been a longtime ABC contributor, joins us now. Welcome back, Donna.
Thank you, George.
Let's get some facts on the table first. As DNC chair, you didn't have the power on your own to replace Hillary on the ticket.
No, but as you well know, the charter of the DNC, as well as the convention rules, say that the chairperson shall, in consultation with the leadership in Congress and others. And so I had to put it on the table, George, because I was under tremendous pressure after Secretary Clinton fainted to have a quote-unquote plan B. I didn't want a plan B. Plan A was great for me. I supported Hillary, and I wanted her to win, but we were under pressure.
So how serious was this? You're right that you got a call from Vice President Biden at the time. Did you mention this to the Vice President?
No, I did not. I mean, look, everybody was calling to see, do you know anything? How is she doing? And of course, my job at the time, George, was to reassure people, not just the vice president, but also reassure the Democratic Party, the members of the party, that Hillary was doing fine and that she will resume her campaign in the following week.
Do you still think that Biden and Booker would have won?
Well, you know, I had a lot of other combinations. This was something that you play out in your mind, but at the time I was sitting next to Charlie Baker, who was her chief administrator.
Clinton's campaign.
Yeah, that's right. And Charlie and I put down, and we had a lot of rumors coming. I had the former chair of the DNC calling me, Donald Fowler Senior, what are you doing? Look, the bottom line is she resumed campaigning. I went on TV to say that the campaign was back on track.
As you can imagine, there's been quite a reaction to this, including this open letter from the Hillary for America 2016 team signed by about 100 people. They say they were shocked to learn that you were considering this, and they go on to say, it is particularly troubling and puzzling that she would seemingly buy into false Russian-fueled propaganda spread by both the Russians and our opponent about our candidate's health.
Well, George, at the time, like I said, I talked with Charlie. But as it relates to that...
Did you mention this idea to him?
No, I kept my own counsel. I'm the chair of the party, George, and I decided I wanted to be up front with someone inside the campaign, and Charlie was there sitting across from me. But let me just address what my former colleagues... I wasn't a staff person. I did not work for the Hillary Clinton campaign. I was not on their daily strategy calls. I had nothing to do with their data analytics. I was the chair of the Democratic National Committee. I was concerned about the entire party, not just the presidential, but the senatorial, congressional, and all of the other
From the sound of it, it sounds like you had a pretty dysfunctional relationship with the high command in Hillary's campaign. You even talk about telling them at some point, I'm not Patsy the slave.
Oh, George, let me tell you something. I could not control the purse string of the Democratic Party, and I had to figure out what was going on within the party, that the chair of the party, and remember, I wasn't just the chair, I'm also a vice chair. I was an officer for 8 years. 8 years under President Obama. I knew what was going on within the party. I become chair and I'm trying to write a check for something. I raised the money and they're like, you got to get signed off from Brooklyn. I said, Brooklyn? This wasn't a standard joint fundraising agreement. They had a separate memorandum of understanding, and I needed to break that. But in order to break it, I would cause a great commotion. So, yeah, I'm not Patsy the Slave because I got sick and tired of people telling me how to spend money when all I was trying to do, I wasn't getting a salary. I was basically volunteering my time. And what I was trying to do, George, was to increase the level of enthusiasm and passion for Hillary Clinton and the rest of the ticket all across the country.
They also take exception to your description of the campaign right now as an antiseptic, sterile campaign inside the headquarters. A lot of people saying that is not the campaign they knew.
Well, you know what? They should take a page from Hillary's book, take a look inside of what they did last year, and then they should write their own book. Hillary wrote a book, which I enjoyed reading, was part memoir. It was a history book. I love reading her book. If they don't like my book, don't buy it. But let me just say this. I have every right as a former chair of the party. Next year, I will celebrate almost 50 years in American politics. The Democratic Party is 170 years old.
I get that, but how do you respond? It's not just the Clinton campaign. You know, there's a lot of traffic on Twitter right now. I've gotten emails from Democrats, passionate Democrats, who say they feel betrayed by all this. Any regrets?
Do I regret taking on a job the second time in my life as chair of the party, cleaning up everybody's mess, taking all of the incoming, being unable to spend funds that I raised? Do I regret being on the road 100% of the time, being hacked by the Russians, being harassed, getting death threats? Do I regret any of that? George, this was worse than Hurricane Katrina in terms of the emotional toll. But do I regret standing up for what's right, helping Hillary Clinton, helping the Democratic Party? And let me just say this, as somebody who went through the hacking experience, being able to tell the truth about what happened with the Russians, the attack on our government, do I regret any of that? No, I wish I could have done more, George.
But do you think this helps for the book to come out?
Well, George, I mean, this is a lesson of 2016. If I released it next year, they would say, Donna, you're impacting on 2018. If I release it the following, Donna, you're impacting. George, for those who are telling me to shut up, they told Hillary that a couple of months ago. You know what I tell them? Go to hell. I'm going to tell my story. I want to tell my story, George, because this is a story of a young girl who started in American politics at the age of 9, who continues to fight each and every week of her life. I went down to Virginia last week to kick off the canvassing campaign. Nobody paid me to do that. Nobody, I'm not on a payroll, George. I care about my country. I care about our democracy. And I say go to hell because why am I supposed to be the only person that is unable to tell my story? Now, I've heard a lot of tell me various things as well, but here's what they don't know. They don't know what it was like to be over at the DNC during this hacking. They don't know what it's like to bury a child. I did, Seth Rich. They don't know what it's like to protect the staff from further harassment. They don't know what it's like because the high command of Brooklyn, the people who were making the decisions, even for the DNC, they didn't come and work with us. They told us to shut up and basically let them win the election. And when we tried to intervene, we had to spend money we raised to try to help them win. And that was my job as chair of the party.
Pretty clear you have